In July 1943, the island of Sicily was a graveyard of burnt-out tanks and hidden explosives. The British Eighth Army, led by the methodical Field Marshal Montgomery, had come to a grinding halt. Their engineers had detected a massive German minefield blocking the coastal road. The British stayed put, waiting for the slow, painstaking process of clearing every inch of dirt. But then a cloud of dust appeared on the horizon. It was a lone American jeep flying a three-star general's flag. General George S. Patton was behind the wheel, and he wasn't stopping. As the British officers screamed for him to halt, Patton did the unthinkable. He stood up in his seat and ordered his driver to floor it directly into the forbidden zone. What happened next didn't just shock the British, it redefined the way the Americans fought the war. Patton didn't just drive through a minefield, he proved a point that would change the map of Europe forever. This is the story of the day Patton risked his life to humiliate the British High Command. The invasion of Sicily, known as Operation Husky, was supposed to be Montgomery's show. According to the official Allied plan, the British were to take the primary road to the city of Messina. Patton's Seventh Army was relegated to a supporting role, basically protecting Monty's flank while the British took all the glory. Patton was livid. He told his staff, "I'm not going to let that little Britisher beat me to the prize." While the British moved with extreme caution, checking every bush for snipers and every bridge for explosives, Patton's philosophy was different. He called it violence of action. He believed that if you moved fast enough, the enemy wouldn't have time to pull the trigger. But on the road to the town of Gela, Patton's speed met an immovable object, a field of German S-mines, also known as bouncing Bettys. A British engineering unit had cordoned off a vital stretch of road. They were using handheld detectors, moving at a snail's pace. When Patton's jeep arrived, the British major in charge stepped into the road and held up his hand. "Sir," he shouted, "you can't go through here. The road is heavily mined. We haven't cleared a path yet." Patton looked at the major, then looked at the empty road ahead. He could see the dust of the retreating German army in the distance. Every minute he spent waiting was a minute the Germans used to dig in. Patton's jaw set. He didn't just want to pass, he wanted to show the British that their caution was a weakness. He looked at his driver and said, "Drive on." The British soldiers watched in horror as the American jeep roared past the danger signs. Patton wasn't just sitting in the back, he was standing up, holding on to the roll bar, his ivory-handled revolvers glinting in the Sicilian sun. He was a perfect target for any mine or sniper. The jeep's tires kicked up clods of dirt. In a minefield, this is usually the last thing you see before an explosion. But Patton had a theory. He believed that many of the mines were duds, or that the Germans had been too rushed to bury them properly. More importantly, he wanted his own men to see that fear was a choice. As the jeep raced through the field, the British stared in disbelief. Patton didn't hit a mine. He made it through the entire lethal zone in less than 60 seconds. When he reached the other side, he looked back at the stunned British major and reportedly shouted, "The only thing dangerous about this road is your lack of guts." To his men, it was proof that their commander was invincible. It gave them the courage to push harder, to bypass obstacles, and to take risks that the British weren't willing to take. But to the British High Command, it was a reckless stunt that endangered Allied cooperation. Montgomery was furious. He complained to Eisenhower that Patton was a loose cannon who was going to get himself or his men killed for the sake of a headline. Patton's response in his diary was classic George. He wrote, "The British are so afraid of mines that they won't even walk on the grass. If we wait for them to clear the way, the war will last until 1950. Patton did beat Montgomery to Messina. He arrived hours before the British, once again standing on a balcony to watch them march in. The Minefield incident became a symbol of the American way of war, fast, aggressive, and often dangerously impatient. It taught the Americans that sometimes the greatest risk is not taking one. However, historians still debate. Was Patton a genius who saw through German deception, or was he just incredibly lucky? One thing is certain. On that day in Sicily, Patton didn't just drive through a minefield. He drove right over the ego of the British Empire. What do you think? Was Patton's stunt brave leadership, or was it just foolish luck? Let us know in the comments.